Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another live stream. You might find us a little subdued this evening. I'm absolutely cream crackered after a crap day at work.
It's been a week, to say the least, hasn't it? It's been a fucking week.
David's had some very, shall we say, troublesome stuff going on personal life. But, you know, we made it. We made it if we are a little bit subdued. So, yeah, welcome to the Yellow Belly live stream. Let's give everybody a shout out in the chat. Hello to Paul Howells of Pandyman Gaming, or Pandyman Entertainment, I suppose to give it its correct term. Hello Cheeseme, hello Orinoco, hello Spam and Egg, hello Darren. Darren's already got in there, so Darren's working on his gunpla. Not something I've ever dabbled with, Darren.
Is that your heavy metal theme, Darren?
Oh, that was
because that is inspired. If it is,
oh, that is pretty cool. So go on then, Darren. Share in the chat. Why gunpla? Obviously, it seems from what I've seen on your Insta to be a bit out of your wheelhouse. Is it you just love the chillness of building them, or do you apply paint and that After Effects? Or is it a brand new thing for you? Is this your first project? Go on, give us a bit more. No technical difficulties yet, Paul, but don't tempt fate, mate, please, for fuck's sake. Cream crackered, knackered, cheese me. Sorry, I'm going in with the Englishisms, forgetting that some of our friends in the chat are international. Yes, cheese me. Cream crackered is Cockney rhyming slang for knackered. Or tired, exhausted. No, we've got, look, mate, the drama of the sump has been surpassed by a number of powers. It's been
lots of other powers that be.
It's cubed and squared, and you know, the sump is nothing. Hello, Crispin. Good to see you. No, well spotted.
Fine.
Darren, well spotted. Jesus, we've got some of the most eagle-eyed audience. The reason this is off is because I have had to have a mess about with I'm running out of USB ports, basically. Too many peripherals, not enough ports. So I need to have a little bit of a play around with the way I've got a 4-way trailer that the wife bought me for Christmas, which is one of them ones that's got power sockets, and then on the end it's got a bank of USB plugs. So I need to have a little bit of a play around at the weekend and get everything sorted. So yeah, that's the live on air isn't on air tonight, but we are, so that's fine. We almost have 70 subs. Do you know we picked up an extra one? And do you know what?
We're at the best number now.
We're at 69.
Churlish and childish.
Oh dear. Well, it makes me laugh. So there you go. Yeah. Do you know what? We might only have 69 subscribers, but I like to think they're the best subscribers. Do you know what I mean? We haven't picked up the riffraff yet. I see.
You can't have in favourites.
So Cheeseme saying having the sign off is technical difficulties. Go on then, Cheeseme. If it allows you to use your hashtag, we'll let you. Okay, Darren says he blames Justin off On Tabletop, for those in our audience who are not part of the On Tabletop crew. And I love Knights of Sidonia. It's my first one and I fancied something different. Good for you, man. Never something that's appealed to me, but I know people do rant and rave about them. Just as a kit build, they're supposed to be like almost the top of the heap in terms of that. Oh, it's on OTT. Right, well, if I don't remember Jerry and Tim covering it yet, but if they haven't, presumably they will when you finish it. Yeah, Cheesy agrees. Perfect number of subs.
I had a bit of a square up today, and I found some Revel kits that I didn't realise I owned.
Oh, what?
Are still brand new on Sprue.
Military
I've got a Ferrari and a Eurofighter Typhoon to paint and build at some point.
Do you think you'll get back into them? Because that was the thing that you did before, like wargaming, wasn't it? Like classic hobby.
I'll probably
model hobbying.
I'll probably do some I will probably get them painted as a bit of a palette cleanser, but at the moment, as all of you that are aware and have watched the show before is, we're fucking doing terrain.
Yeah, terrain again tonight, although I have got a change, because I'm sure you're all getting sick of seeing that fucking MDF crawl along at a snail's pace. Darren says it's not his heavy metal entry as he's not painting it. So he's just literally doing the model building experience and the zen of that. That's fine, mate. That's cool. Although he has got some robots to enter anyway. I vote you say. Do you know what, Spam? I'm sure we haven't got any fucking choice. Yeah.
Just keep subbing and unsubbing to keep us at 69 forever.
And I was going to say, unless we pick up, every time we pick up a new one, we're going to need some contrarian to unsub just to keep us at 69. Yeah, the build quality is amazing, Darren says. Yeah, good to hear it. Out of interest, Darren, how much did your kit cost? Because I know that like these Gundam Gunpla things, the price range can be pretty... It can go up to spectacularly expensive, down to very reasonable. Your kit is where at in the price scale? Paul's already submitted his. Well, I haven't seen it, Paul. You I don't want to spoil everybody by saying what you did send me and then said, no, actually that was just a gag.
Is Paul sending Paul dick pics?
Cheaper. Crispin, of course it's cheaper than a 40k model. You could buy the government debt of Japan's cheaper than a 40k model. Right. So anyway, let's get into tonight's show. It's 100 sovs. Ooh, so it's a pretty high quality kit, boy. Nice. Right, let's get into it. So, welcome if you're joining us for the first time on the Yubel Tubles. Tonight we're going to run through our normal format. So on these live streams, David and I will talk about what we're going to be hobbying on. Then we'll have a quick chat about what we got up to at Gaming Club. Then we've got some news to share. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of an extended special news section that might overrun a little bit because I want to do a bit of a deep dive on Mantic's current Warpath, Epic Warpath Kickstarter page. Scroll through it. I've had a quick scan and skim, and I haven't backed yet, but I want to go through and have a quick look. Yeah. So for everybody who doesn't know, Spam and Egg is David's other half. She was shocked at the pure amount of stuff this hobby takes after helping David. Yeah, and David, I'm sure David will be the first to admit, compared to some of the old grognards who've been doing this since they were teenagers, his pile of crap is just a drop in the ocean.
Well, hang on. Let's see if I can get this to work, shall we? I'm just going to move my live camera around, so you might end up a little bit motion sick at home, boys and girls. So, we've got a chest now full of stuff. And then over here, we have... If I can move it. Of course I can't fucking move it. There we go. 6 30-litre totes full of bits and pieces.
All stacked next to your chair.
But today I have condensed and I've gained back 3 30-litre totes, so I can make more purchases.
That's something I periodically do. You take all the ones that are 2/3 full with like that 6 inches of headroom, and you're like, okay, we pack that full. And of course, you've got your shelf unit behind you, which looks like it's full of books.
Oh, yeah, I've laying the rule books out, and I've squared up down the bottom for storage, and then the top is just a mess of 3D printing shit and games. But we'll gloss over that.
Jesus Christ, you did well then. Spam says two recycling bags and a black bag later. So you were pretty ruthless. You got rid of a lot of crap.
Yep.
Okay. Definitely amateur level. One of these days, I'm going to try to get the old roving cam going, and I might snake my way live upstairs and show everybody around my room of shame. That might be good for a laugh, because this should work. I don't know we'll have to work out how the audio goes with that.
Well, your headset's wireless, you prick.
Sorry?
Your
No,
headset's
but
wireless, you
yeah,
prick.
but it is wireless. But as soon as I get beyond the wall that's behind me, because that is a solid brick, not a board wall, my audio cuts out on this. So I'd have to run audio through the phone. But
oh, and then also I have a second stack of four drawers absolutely full of shit as well.
yeah, so that is a thing. Okay, Darren said that, right? David will need a Jerry curtain soon. So for everybody who's not in the clique, Jerry is a guy who works on Tabletop, and he does a live stream on Twitch with Tim, who's not here tonight because presumably he's playing Wargames because we clash with his regular Wargaming night. And he also films video content for on Tabletop, previously known as Beast of War. But Jerry has a big curtain stretched behind him across his hobby space, hiding all of his crap. Now, why would you do that? Surely part of the joy for us as hobbyists is to show off our tut. I mean, I'm to be honest, I'm gutted that my bookshelf sideways onto the camera. If I could think of a way of rejigging it so I could show off all my stuff in there, or bring my model cabinets.
You've got your cabinet lit up behind you.
Yeah, but it's only tiny.
With all your minis in. Yeah, no, I know it's only tiny.
But yeah, I don't. Would you ever do that, mate? Would you ever get yourself like a backdrop curtain or a green screen?
Might put a curtain up behind me in the interests of cutting down on the echo with the hard floor.
Yeah, that's a practical answer, but not to hide your stuff.
It's not to hide my shit.
You have to show the toys off. So let's do what we're going to be. Let's go over what we're going to be playing, working on tonight. So do you want to go first?
Yeah. Give me a second. Just make sure it's all the right way around, etc. There we go. Yeah, let's go.
Boom. So
boys and girls at home may recognise the lower half of this that I did last week. I've in stream prep done the other one and put the railings on. What we're now going to do is do the extremely boring and tedious task of putting in the fucking rails.
What are they? Are they little pegs that sit in those slots?
They sit in there, yeah. And then there's a rail to go along.
Okay, so they're like little claws, and they grab an MDF rod. Okay.
Yes.
Got you.
So that's that. Once I've done that, I then need to find the black paint to rim my bases.
Rimming.
Yeah, we're going to have a rimming time because clubs... Dead Zone?
That is Dead Zone.
Just needs rimming.
That's the Veermin from the Dead Zone 3rd edition, I believe.
And we have GCPS, both done in metallic. One's done in metallic green and one's done in a colour shift of purple orange.
Those Veermin look really cool. Good. That skin tone looks quite cool on that Veermin against that purple. Those are Ricky's. Those are Ricky's paint jobs, are they? Oh, yeah. That's a nice one.
Ricky paint.
I do like Veermin. Veermin are almost going to be. Veermin is definitely going to be my second firefight army. I want Veermin. With a video of a roller coaster behind.
I may have been looking at 5 parsecs.
Ooh.
I may be joining the dark side of solo wargaming.
Well, I've got a news item about that, but we'll come to that later. You don't need...
It's almost as if it was pre-scripted.
I see what Paul's saying there. Paul was saying, it's done, David. And I was like, what do you mean? What's he on about? And then he said, you don't need to rim them. Apparently chalky grey is an appropriate colour. Yeah, it looks like you've got a convert, Darren. Looks like you've got a convert. So, right. So that's what you're working on, mate.
Yep, what are you working on?
I will let you off those
Oh,
models that are definitely not terrain, because at least they're for club. So you're doing some social work. I will let you off. So myself.
Well, again, it's a nice, easy task. I don't have to think about the
Yeah,
podcast.
Tonight's task for me is a perfect live streamer, and hopefully I'll be able to make some progress. We are finally getting stuck into our Dungeon Alia project. David has been printing like an absolute friggin' maniac. As you guys may remember, who watch us regularly, on one of our previous live streams, we discussed doing a Frostgrave table, because I want to focus on Frostgrave this year. I want to get a lot done. I want to get more monsters painted. I want to get more terrain so I can have more interesting battlefields. And then we talked about one of the missions in the Into the Breeding Pits scenario. And David's been imprinting some sewers. So I've received these. So these are FDM prints, mate, aren't they? If you want to tell everybody at home. And this was it was a rescale of a file. Where did you get the file again?
Fuck knows. I know it was a free file. Think they're available on free Thingiverse. They're an open forge sewer tile set.
So basically, my first job, which is the job I want to do tonight, these are straight off David's printer, and they've got a little bit of I guess it's like a grip foot, isn't it, to make them anchor when they start printing. So there's a seam that's got to be basically shaved off these edges, either with a craft knife or a files, just to make them so that...
You've got 32 at yours, haven't you?
Sorry?
You have got 32, haven't you?
Do you know what? I haven't actually counted up.
Might be worth having a count, because I found 2 in my kitchen earlier today.
Okay, I'll have a count. So the plan is, what we're going to do is butt these up into probably sets of 4, because our table's 36 inches square. So I want to get them cleaned up so that they sit almost snug. Then I'm going to use some sort of basing material, probably either 1mm or 2mm plastic card, cut to an appropriate size, and then we're going to put some acrylic filler in the gaps just to hide the seam and blend them together, and then it's on to painting. So as I say, tonight I just want to get everything cleaned so that it butts up nicely and I can get to the next step of basing and then painting. And effectively what we've got is like the scenario requires a cross of sewer trenches with a central junction, and David's printed off this 4-way adapter so that we can just run the arms off it. Yeah, I mean, Cheese Me screams, Pridlas. Look, Cheese Me, it's terrain. Get a grip, all right? Once it's got primer and paint and fucking whatever other shit we put on it, it won't matter. You really won't.
Anyway, it's fucking sandstone rock. It's going to have lines.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not a big thing. Trench offensive would have been a great shout. That's true, Paul. But Frostgrave won. And to be fair, Frostgrave for me was a neglected game last year. I might have played one game. Shame on me. So there we go. That's what I'm going to be working on to nigget. Let's tell everybody about Club Night. So, Club Night. Now,
should I go first? Because you seem to be having trouble.
No, hang on a minute. Let me add, because I was just thinking. I didn't get a photo of your game, but I did get a photo of your game. Just let me go to here, and I'll add in a photo of what you were doing, because you were doing something different to me, as we often do at Club. So let's put this into the mix, because it does actually look quite cool. And I think our club we are quite lucky to have a gaming club that does have a reasonably good selection of terrain. I think it's fair to say. So because of
it's quite versatile.
Because of the order of the files in the slideshow, I'll go first. In fact, actually, before I even do that, let me get my metal files just in case I need them. Then I've got sanding sticks, files, and hobby knife all to hand, and I won't need to go digging again. Ugh! Aha! We have them.
This is fiddly as fuck, and I don't like it.
Don't like it. To be fair, you've had a
Don't like it.
A lot of that, but the thing is, that's the curse. We mentioned it on the stream before. MDF is a fantastic medium for making terrain, but when you want the detail, the only way to go is a fiddly as fuck kit, isn't it, mate?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, Frostgrave is an awesome game, Paul. So do you play Frostgrave, Paul, or have you just heard of it? Is it just on your radar?
Get in the fucking hole. Thank you for shouting out, hitting the like button, choose me.
Yeah, 8 likes and 9 in the chat. Not bad, not bad. Yeah, that's because you're the A team, you guys. Right, so I'm gonna have a swig of my coffee. I did some Malifaux. I'm gonna now focus a lot on Malifaux last year, so I've already said to Trevor, who's my regular gaming companion at the club, we're only going to play probably a couple of games, 2 or 3 games this year. I don't want to binge it like I did last year, because I want to give some other games the limelight. But once again, I ran my Asami 10 Thunders crew against Trevor's. I think they're Outcasts. Jackdaw is the master for people who are into their Malifaux. The table is basically, you guys will probably recognise this stuff. This is the old MDF foreground terrain that sadly is no longer available.
For going out of business.
Yep. It absolutely beautiful. Not the cheapest stuff on the market, but Christ Almighty, does it look great when it's put together. All pre-coloured, so literally a bit of glue and you're done. It's on a Deep Cut Studio cobblestone mat. And then we've got we did an urban scenario that with just some, those are resin barrels and crates painted up from Oathsworn, the guys who do Burrows and Badgers. And that's one of the old 3rd edition, I think it is, or 4th edition cardboard buildings from Warhammer Fantasy Battle on a grassed MDF base. So yeah, absolutely fantastic game. We actually finished the whole game. It's the first game of Malifaux. We've got to the end of turn 5, finished with half an hour to spare and time to pack up. So we're sticking with the game and giving it several iterations has definitely helped us bed in the rules. And obviously we're becoming, the trick with Malifaux is you need to become familiar with your models. All of the rules and the complexity comes from the models you bring. If you start switching your models out every second game, I don't think you're going to struggle to make progress with it. But I'm beginning to really get to grips with my Asami crew, and Trevor's Jackdaw is the same. It's basically got a fixed list and he plays the same every time, and it's really starting to click for us. It was an extremely close game. We called, I won 6-5. So bear in mind the maximum points you can score in a Malifaux game is 10. That's if you get, 8 actually, because you could get 9, because you can get 4, no, 10, 9, 8, because you can get 4.
Can you math, you
Shut
fucking discalculate fuck?
Because you can get 4 off your main main strategy, and then you can get 2 each off your side schemes. For us, it was a relatively high-scoring game, which again goes to show that we are actually getting very good at playing the Malifaux scenarios, because we were both scoring quite well with the actual schemes and strategies we'd got. Yeah, I only do percentages. I only do ratios. I can't do raw math. So yeah, absolutely fantastic game. Nothing else to say really. It was a really good game. We both really enjoyed it. It was fantastic because it was close right up until the end. Malifaux is one of those games. It's very different to any other miniatures game I've ever played. It's very abstract and a bit weird. You end up doing things that you don't do in other miniature games. It's like, you might score a point for pushing this objective across the board. It's all very bizarre. But the great thing about that is you're not necessarily invested in kicking the crap out of your opponent, because there's literally no scoring benefit from doing that. If it helps you with the main strategies and schemes, then by all means attack the enemy models, but it's not a given. Just going and you can win Malifaux on points with you can get tabled and win the game, because if you achieve the objectives and score the points off these scenarios, it doesn't matter what your opponent does if they wipe you out and don't leak. Because again, it's got a great system. So, like the main scoring in Malifaux, you can only score one off the main. It doesn't matter how well you do at the main strategies. You can only score 1 point per turn. So you can't like, I'll ignore it for 2 turns, kick the shit out of my opponent, and then score 8 points at the end. You can't do that in Malifaux. You have to be working on it at every turn. Each turn you miss is a scoring opportunity gone, and you never get it back. It's a really cool game, and it's really well thought out. The next slide is nothing to do with our game, but it was the other game that was going on at club, so we'll just quickly skip over it. This was a table that was set up for Combat Patrol 40k. Luke was playing Ricky and showing Ricky 40k Combat Patrol.
Ricky quite enjoyed it, and Ricky doesn't like 40k.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys. I don't know if we have many 40k. I don't hesitate to use the word fans, but even people who would be entertaining the idea of playing it. But I've heard good things about Combat Patrol. Everybody who I know who's played it, even people who are quite ground down and sick of 40k, say Combat Patrol's actually quite good. And I still want to give it. I'm going to give it a go. I think this year I'm definitely going to try and find the opportunity to try it. And I do have all of the Necron models for the current Necron Combat Patrol, so I should be able to do it quite easily.
What's this currently on screen? Armada.
Yeah.
I hear you cry. So I played Armada with Alex. We played a 200-point game of Dwarves versus Northern Alliance. We played a scenario from the Seas of Dread called Fortune Rocks. I was holding a map, and my task was to go to the middle island, interrogate an enchanter on the middle of the island to find the information. If I've got the information and the map, it is worth 5 VP at the end of the game. The map on its own is only worth 2 VP for me. Alex's main objective was to sink and get hold of the map off myself. That was worth 3 VP for him. And then for every medium and larger ship that medium and large ships were worth 1 VP, and extra large ships worth 2 VP.
Did you get the kill points as well, or was the kill points only Alex's thing?
I did get kill points as well.
Oh, okay.
Because Alex didn't achieve the goal of taking down my flagship with a map on it. Alex didn't actually sink a single one of my boats.
That's because dwarves are OP in Armada.
No.
Yes.
No.
Refer to previous stream with rant about broken dreadnought mechanics, and don't say, "Oh, but I didn't bring a dreadnought."
I didn't bring a dreadnought. I wanted to bring a dreadnought, but a dreadnought's 95 points.
And broken.
No, it's not broken. You just have to have a very particular set of skills to deal with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a rather fun game.
And the look of the Irish.
Yeah. It was a rather fun game, but part of this spurred tonight's conversation.
I was just about to say
that we're going to have later.
Yeah. Our main topic, which I haven't mentioned, which may be starting slightly later tonight, is we're going to talk about the structure and scoring of scenarios in wargaming, and both of tonight's club games will feature in that discussion in some form or other, along with some other little anecdotes that we've got. But essentially, so yeah, if to get you guys geared up for the chat later, think about games you've played and scenario rules that you've come across that have actually, the scenarios, shall we say, has introduced balance issues where, like, say, a particular faction is on the back foot, and it's sort of created those hard to win things just by the scenario rules, focusing on that, not necessarily, oh well, my fucking faction's way underpowered because the game designers did a shit job on that. We wanted to just drill down and put the laser focus on scenario rules. So yeah, do you know what? It is a very nice looking mat, Darren, and that is the Mantic Armada mat.
Yeah.
It's a decent quality. It's a fantastic price.
It's a nice neoprene mat. It's got the little windrose points for you to put your little wind marker, because as we've spoken about before on the channel, where the wind enters the board affects the order activation for the ships of the game.
I believe it's fully stitched edging, isn't it?
No, it's not.
It's not, is it? Okay.
No, it's not.
Okay, so there's the only black mark against it. Other than that, I think it's a cracking little map. 4x4, of course.
Really good.
But the great thing about it, the vibrancy of the colours. Hello, this is Upworlder. That's Trevor, the Malifaux. Yes, I saw about it, mate. I will mention it when we come to the chat. So Upworlder, who's in the chat now, is Trevor, who I was talking about, my Malifaux opponent, who gave me such a fantastic game on Monday. And the only thing I think people sometimes say about this Mantic mat is that the colour palette's a little bit intense. I mean,
it is a bit tropical fucking Bahamas.
It is a bit Caribbean.
And considering they have scenarios set in the frozen north,
yeah,
it's a bit of an issue.
But you know, a C-mat's a C-mat. I'd happily play bloody Dystopian or fucking, I don't know, Black Sails or whatever it's called on it. I just think it's a good little mat. And in fact, we used it also for Carnivale, don't we, mate? We set our Carnivale terrain on it.
Yes.
Not very canal looking, but it's perfectly good. So let's get into some canoes with a silent K. Canoes. We're coming to that one last. Oh no, I've pressed the wrong button. Idiot. Right, okay. The first thing we're going to talk about is, did somebody mention solo wargaming?
Yes, I did mention solo wargaming.
Well, OPR are getting in on the game. OPR have released a beta, an open beta, for an Age of Fantasy quest game. So this is a solo... It's got some aspects of Mordheim to it. It's got some aspects of Frostgrave to it. It's obviously D6 based because it's OPR. It's a solo skirmish gaming experience. I found this video by a channel called Outer Planet Models. Only 2,000 subscribers, small little channel. In fact, I'm going to give him a like. Basically going through, he does a playthrough of a scenario with a war, but he shows how to build a war band, discusses the rules, and I was really interested to see that the reason this is in the news is OPR are getting back. You know, this solo wargaming thing, it's a thing. OPR are in on it now. Everybody's jumping. Did they already have that was one thing I didn't.
They've got 6 solo for Grimdark Future and Age of Fantasy.
Yeah, so I didn't. Darren's answered one of the questions that I didn't know the answer to, which was, did they already have a Grimdark Future version? Do you know if the Grimdark Future version is in beta, Darren, or is it a finished rule set?
Do believe it's finished.
I'll be honest, mate, as the resident solo wargame expert, if you want to have a look at this video and then come back with us for some feedback, either in the comments on this video or leaving it till next week, I'd appreciate what you think, because obviously you're already in on this game, aren't you? With your 5 leagues and all that stuff.
Yeah, 5 parsecs. And...
yeah, Paul was doing solo before it was cool. That's true. Go on.
Right, I'll just lean out of shot a second to get more wet palette. So
when just tell us, how far ahead of the curve were you, Paul? Actually, that's a good point. What is your view? Okay, so the solo comes with the paid version of Grimdark, which you would have because you're an OPR subscriber, aren't you, mate?
Yeah, I did tell you this.
Yeah, you do, Darren. You got bloody homework, son. Yeah, actually, I hadn't really thought about that, Paul. What do you think to this solo wargaming renaissance, mate? Because you're right. You're threat. What's your modern day one?
Threat level.
Threat level. Your threat level's got solo elements to it. It's basically solo elements, isn't it? Yeah. Maybe we'll have to have Paul on to have a chat just about that. We shall have to do that. Get Paul on just to talk about that. Where was I? Right. So, next piece of news. I find I'm not watching as much YouTube as I used to, but I wanted to shout out MS Paint's most recent video. I think it's his most recent one. Basically, do you know what? What I like is when YouTube content creators almost commit ritual suicide on the platform and just decide to do shit because they want to do it, even though the algorithm will probably bin it. And, you know, all respect, total respect to Dave. This is a fantastic little video about an absolutely god-awful card game that I've never heard of. That was one of the many CCGs that appeared and died just as quickly in the late 90s, early noughties. It's a great video. It's utterly irreverent. It's on a theme that only 10 people in the actual world will care about. But Dave weaves his magic and just makes such a really watchable video. So for anybody who's not considered watching this, 20 minutes of your life well worth spending, I think. Have you seen this one, mate? Because I know you're a bit of a fan of...
I haven't yet.
Hello, Ewok. Yeah, so Paul's pleased that solo wargaming is... Hello, Toros. Ambush by Victory Games. That's presumably a historical Toros, is it? Apart from TNT. TNT? What's TNT? Toros, what's
Well, it's an explosive.
Yeah, I know, no, but what's T and T? The only thing that I can think of is Tunnels and Trolls, which is an old RPG from back in the day. 5 parsecs was a bumpy ride. Yeah, it can be pretty deadly. I've
heard that you have to embrace random.
Also, Toros, is Ambush a miniatures game, or is it some more of a solo counters military style game? Almost like a solo board game, if you know what I mean. Just out of interest, because I'm always interested in this sort of stuff. So yeah, MS Paints and Dave, well worth a watch. There really hasn't been a hell of a lot else on YouTube that I've been watching recently. the only other thing I've been watching recently is every single Arkham Horror Living Card Game video put out by the guys at Playing Board Games. But I don't mention them every week because this is primarily a channel about hobby gaming, and me rattling on about my obsession with Arkham every week might piss people off, so I don't do it. But yeah, the new set, Hemlock Vale, is due out soon, and I'm jazzed for that. Guys with sticks want it. Ambush is a board game. Okay, mate. Oh, Tunnels and Trolls. You played solo. Okay, I didn't know that Tunnels and Trolls could be played solos. I remembered playing Tunnels and Trolls as a teenager at school back in the mid-80s. But yeah, because it's an RPG, isn't it? Tunnels and Trolls. Full RPG. From memory. So unless you've got any news, mate, we've only got the big boys left.
No, I think that's it. Because did I send you any news articles?
I don't think so. But then again, I wouldn't be surprised I'll be surprised, frankly, if you've had time to look at anything on the internet, given the fucking drama you've been through in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, no, I didn't send you any news.
Yeah, that's fine then. So let's move on. The big news, Epic Warpath is on Kickstarter. So
Arrived day before yesterday?
it went live on the 14th at some point during the day.
Yesterday.
Yeah, it went live yesterday at some point during the day. I think the first post they've already put, they funded within hours. They're now at 130,000 out of the 30 grand they needed for their initial setup costs. Because essentially Mantic do these just for the mold costs to get the plastics out for the first wave. So they've already smashed through that. And yeah, so before we get into it, is who here? Yeah, 250,000 for the next faction to be unlocked. Tunnels and Trolls was great fun. Best spell name ever. That there's loads of yeah, that is cool. Yeah, I think you're probably right, mate. Yeah, they probably did predate Fighting Fantasy. Although, whenever you see Fighting Fantasy mentioned, Livingstone Jackson are sort of heralded as the progenitors of the genre. So maybe not. Maybe they were very close and they picked them to the post. That's a good idea, Darren. Rather than roll randomly for monsters, actually build a structure to it so that you get a sensible difficulty. That's not a bad way to do it. And ultimately, with the solo experience, you can homebrew it however you want.
Well, I was looking at.
Okay. FF
what
was the
review
first
was
to add
it? I
dicing
think it was. Think it was the review for. Might have been for Doomed or 5 Parsecs from Asher GMG. And there's literally, if you want to fucking house rule it.
Yeah.
Do what you want. It's a solo game.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, you should be doing that with your war games anyway. You know, there's unless you are somebody who plans for competitive and tournament organised play, you should organise your own play in your own way with your friends to have the most fun. That's the point, isn't it?
Yep.
So yeah, is anybody here planning to back Epic Warpath, or have they already backed before we get into it?
I'm going to say it's not a bad price for the base tier level of get an army, get a rulebook.
I did think exactly the same myself, mate. Yeah, so Cheese Me's already backed. Okay, cool. Right, well...
What are we looking at for delivery time on this, by the way?
That is a good question. Let's see if the answer is buried somewhere in here. So there's 14 days to go on the actual Kickstarter. So currently we have got 4 factions in the initial offering. We have the Enforcers, so basically Space Marines Light. We've got the Plague, which is the To be fair, do you know what? That's one thing I do like about the way Mantic have done their Firefight universe is that they've not tried to cookie cutter the tropes. The Plague have got elements of orcs, elements of nids. They've definitely got a horde style play, but there is that mixture of sort of like improvised low tech that comes from the orcs. I like them. There's the Forge Fathers, which I'm really glad to see because they're probably my favourite faction. But that's, again, probably born from bitterness because GW destroyed my squat dreams when they were very young and in the womb back in the 80s. And then there's the Asterians, the sort of like the Mantic's closest approximation to the Eldar. But then they're, again... The Asterians are a weird amalgamation of elements. Some of the design elements have Eldar influence. Some of them have Tau influence, and they have a lot of things like mobile robot platforms and shield generators, stuff that feels very Tau, but they are their own thing. So you've got the 4 initial factions on offer. The design is by Alessio and Matt Gilbert. Now, there are a whole range of videos that I know have gone up on Mantic's channel. So if you want to learn how to play the game, all of your options are covered. I'll have to keep clicking back to check the chat. Orinoco,
Tech Space Racists.
Orinoco's already backed.
March 2025.
Okay, so next year. That's fine. Good. Marauders are... Again, their factions have got some great stuff. Asterians, high-tech space racists. Yep. They're just another incarnation of space racists. What? And then we've got the pledge levels. So, you've got... now let's get some money here. The Sergeant pledge, which is the basic one, is basically a core army of the faction of your choice, your rulebook counters and dice to play the game, and the resin or STL upgrade units to round out your core box into presumably what's close to a full fighting fieldable army. That's only 59 of your Earth pounds, which doesn't seem unreasonable to me.
No, it doesn't.
That's 60 quid for a full army.
For a full rule book.
And all of the accessories to get going. 60 quid to get on the table seems a pretty killer offer, frankly. The Lieutenant pledge, which is just above here, is like their version of a 2-player starter box. So you just get 2 core armies and the game stuff. So you don't get the STL resin or STL upgrades. And that's 90 quid. So that gives you, if you're the gaming advocate who wants to bring somebody in, that's your pledge level. Then you've got that's only 89 of your Earth pounds. These pledges will be subject to postage and VAT, I think, maybe. I'm not sure if VAT is included in this, so it might be added post the event. No, yeah, High Command. Ewok's not tempted by the factions available, although his friend is pestering him. Well, the High Command, let's do that first. So the High Command pledge is basically resin and STL upgrades for all 4 factions, plus their core boxes. So basically, this is their version of, I guess, a God pledge. This will just give you fucking everything. All of the models for all of the factions, plus all the shit you need to get playing. And that's only 100 and... No, that's High Command. Go. That's 475. So that's pretty steep. That is 4 complete. That is the God pledge level. But, that's a bit steep for me. That's a bit rich for my blood. And it looks like the High Command pledge includes the scenery as well.
I did see they're doing some scenery stuff as well.
Yeah, battlefield terrain is included in the High Command pledge. So what is the Captain pledge? Because that's not on this little thing. Retailer pledge we don't care about at the moment. Captain pledge. Oh, okay. So in between. So if you don't want to go quite so psycho, the Captain pledge is basically just the 4 core armies and the rule books without the upgrade shit. So this is pretty much what you did for bloody hell. We talked about it, Drop Zone, wasn't it, mate? Where you bought basic entry level armies for all the factions.
Yes.
Actually, do you know what? Cheese Me's comment that this is the one for this is actually probably the one for the Gaming Advocate, because you don't over invest in any faction, but you will get playable beginner starter forces for everything. So actually, this might be the one to go for a Gaming Advocate. And again, 149 doesn't seem a lot of money for 4 armies.
It's 40 quid. It's not even 40 quid an army.
Yeah, because you get your rulebook counters and dice, which is what? Let's be generous and say that's 25. So that's what? For 144, it's for 35. I suppose it's a bit like DZC. A starter force in DZC is what, 35 quid?
25, 30, yeah.
It's probably about the same as DZC. They're pitching, the pricing is very competitive.
Scale is very similar though, isn't it?
So, and then we've got some more detail on the models you get in the boxes. 310 miniatures. Obviously, typical fucking hyperbole. That's when there's 3 to 6 models on a base. Mantic, come on. Let's keep it real, guys. Come on. Here's your Captain pledge with miniatures for everything. These fucking images are tiny, so there's no point us even trying to look at that. And this is the Psycho pledge. 475 quid, mate. Do you think all in?
No, I'm all right.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. So the terrain, that's interesting. Has anyone... I haven't seen any pictures of this terrain yet. 36 multi-part building sprues. So what is it? Just like downscaled Dead Zone terrain? Question mark?
I would have a... It looks very downscaled Dead Zone terrain.
Oh, the demo table has this terrain on it. I may go back and have a look. Is that the one that they did on the... Andy hosted the videos? So it is Dead Zone, but at epic scale. To be fair, you know... that's
Firefight at epic scale, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think they do any specific terrain for Firefight. I think it's just like that Dead Zone boxy framework stuff. I guess they probably just had to mod it and downscale some of it. That's tempting though. 59 quid for the Sergeant pledge. That is really tempting. I'll be honest, mate. At the moment, I'm thinking, well, it'll be. I will either be doing this one, or I'll go to the Lieutenant if nobody else backs it. So that I've got like enough to show to play the game. So I'm going to be either Sergeant or Lieutenant. Have you decided if you're backing it yet or not?
Not sure. I haven't really paid attention or seen any of the playthroughs. It's been a sort of stressful month or so. So I will have a look and go from there.
Okay. So we've got a few extra add-ons people can buy here. So you can add an extra core box of your choice to your pledge for 35.
That pre-mat's not a bad price.
Yeah, they do the mats as well. These are only single-sided though, and you get a choice of either the red Mars or the green, I don't know, Badlands, Wasteland, whatever the hell it is. But I think they are. It's not like it's a. When I first saw this, I thought that was a double-sided. I was like, 49 quid for a double-sided 6x4. Yes, please. But then I realised that you just choose, and it's one or t'other, not both. Bummer. So what else have we got? So the extra large building pack is £100. Contains city, battle zone, industrial, and large roof space, roadway, tower base, tower top, airbase brews. Roadway, eh?
Interesting.
Yeah, I am interested in that terrain. I wonder if we get more picks further down. So,
I'll tell you what I have done. I've rimmed all my bases, boy.
hey, you've had a good time rimming then. You've been rimming away. So now what are you going to do?
Possibly some 3D printed stuff that I've got also on the table. Let's be efficient. Press home this advantage.
Do you know what? Ewoks made a sane remark there. 36 sprues of terrain, as if having 300 ants to paint wasn't enough fun. Yeah, do you know what? That might be the sanest thing we'll hear tonight. Be careful, because you have got to paint all of this shit. The big drawback with plastic terrain is painting it. Although, I can't imagine this is going to be difficult to paint. Famous last words of an idiot. I mean, how much detail can you really put on tiny terrain? Question mark.
Don't know. Anybody ask Mantic?
So yeah, we've got the enforcers. Don't really appeal to me. The vehicles look kind of cool. Panther grav tanks. And then we've got the extra stuff. Some of which is not revealed, because it's going to be revealed later. But you get a fuller range of flyers. Looks like there's heroes. I do like the vehicles, but that's why you would play these games, isn't it? Super heavy flyer.
Spray plus dry brush, prime dry brush and speed paint.
Yeah. Plague. Now, Plague do appeal to me. So you've got some infantry, very nergly looking infantry. Command, we've got some artillery pieces, big walkers, transports for close combat. Looks like we've got some sort of gun platform and flyers. Oh my god, the super heavy. Look at that Plague Colossus. That looks pretty cool. Yeah.
To be fair, the Asterian Colossus that you'll see in a bit looks amazing as well.
Okay. So, scrolling further down. Forge Fathers. Storm Rage Veterans.
If I'm saying the samest thing, then we're seriously in trouble.
Yep. Sternhammers, Half Tracks, Iron Ancestor, sort of like Dreadnought equivalent. Jotun weapon platforms. Oh, I like that dropship. That's got a really nice aesthetic with the square jets. Presumably it's like some vertical takeoff landing thing and they rotate. But I like that. I like the bikers as well. I do like armies that have bikers in them. That looks like some kind of flyer from Silhouette. And then you've got, look at the bloody great big tank. Oh my god, that's ridiculous. Isn't that the Thundercats vehicle? I'm sure they've probably violated some copyright there. And here's the Asterians, Cypher Primes, missile launchers, Sky Razors. They got some. Do you know what? Their miniature design is really good. Really good. So then we've got characters. Some of these look very Eldar. That Spectra Blade Master looks very Eldar. But then the map.
Do you think that looks?
Go on, mate.
The Colossus is very, very.
Oh
very
yeah! Oh
Eldar.
wow! Yeah, that's very. What's it? Bloody. What was the Eldar Titan called?
Wraith Knight.
Wraith Knight, yes, well done, that man. Yeah, it is very Wraith Knight-esque, isn't it?
I love the fact that it's got 4 arms.
Yeah, I do actually. I like that a lot. So, and then we're on to some stretch goals. Now, I don't think this is yet. So currently there is only one stretch goal. If they get to a £250,000, they will unlock a new faction. So this is where I'm a bit like. I think it was Ewok saying that none of the current factions appeal to him. Ewok, what? Ewok says, I once used the excuse I was sellotaping penguins to trucks to avoid overtime. Okay. Yeah.
Ewok, remind me where in the world you come from.
I think Ewok's a Brit. I'm fairly sure Ewok's a
Does
Brit.
it mean like penguin chocolate bars?
Oh, yeah, it could be. Could be. What? Why? What? Where would the rat swarms come from? Oh, you mean if they do VM in? Yeah. Well, this is what I was going to say, right? So, this is where I'm a bit like, I'm a bit like Ewok. Okay, so out of the 4 factions, which do I like most? The Forge Fathers. But what do I already have? A Forge Fathers army in Firefight. So do I really want to collect Forge Fathers in 2 different scales? And you know what? I'm not sure I do want to collect Forge Fathers in 2 different scales.
Not the murdered Bourbons.
To be fair, that's essentially all penguin biscuits are, isn't it? Pimped Bourbons. I mean, you know, just calling it, but that is what they are. And that is the problem I've got. Obviously, I think somebody said earlier you can, Orinoco maybe, you can always change your pledge if you get in the pledge manager. VM would definitely, if they did unlock VM, that would definitely be what I would take. Yeah, I get it, Cheese Me, and I guess they've probably picked the 4 most popular by sales of the other games. Maybe I don't know what they would have. I don't know what metrics they would have used.
Factions that give you different feels.
And you see, this is the other issue as well. Even if they unlock a 5th faction at $250,000, which is it going to be? I mean, I think on their video they said that they would allow the community to decide. So what they'll probably do is put a poll up on the Kickstarter, because I've seen a lot of other Kickstarters do polls during the campaign. So that's probably how they decide. But I mean, if I did back it and then VM were unlocked, I'd have to switch to VM, I think. But what do you think, mate? What should I go for? Plague appeal to me because they've just got a very unique play style. They're essentially
why not go Plague and Assyrian?
Asterian. If I go 2-player, yeah, I guess so. Because, to be fair, that's the other reason. Actually, that's probably the sanest thing, because I've already said I want to do a VM Firefight army, so maybe the last thing I should do is do VM in Epic. I should actually just do completely off factions that I don't really have any passion to do in Firefight. And then I can cover all my options and get a little bit of a hit of everything. That's actually probably a smart way of looking at it.
Question for the boys and girls at home if we come down to my desk cam.
Yeah. Content display. In fact, let's switch out to David's desk cam for just a moment. Boom.
And then you can queue up the next What colours should I paint all these like crates and bits and pieces that I've got?
What are they? 3D prints?
Like ammo crates and fuel cells under some tarps and a load of ammo crates is like a stair set, etc., etc., etc. Answers on a postcard. Think orange for these fuel cells or yellow, but yellow's a twat to paint, particularly over black.
Pinky and Pinky. I reckon that you should go for bold.
What is it for? Generic sci-fi.
I would go for bright, vibrant colours. You know, bright yellow fuel cells, blue and green crates. I think with just when you're doing that sort of stuff in fantasy, you are pretty much locked into muted browns and natural tones. Just let your hobby fucking mojo run wild, mate. Use the most bizarre colours you can think of, because you won't get a chance in like more conventional terrain. Sci-fi is where you can just go bonkers.
Excuse me, Russian green?
No! We're not doing Russian green and Iraqis. Well, do the tarp Russian green. Yeah, the tarp. Do the tarp green.
Where do the brushes go? That's a good question, dude. Where do your brushes go?
Oh my god, I don't even know where their conversations go. Where would we get rubber pants at this time of night? Yeah, yeah, I knew Iraqi sand would have to enter the thing. I'm with Orinoco. Go for bright, vibrant, crazy colours, man. It's sci-fi.
Enough?
Yeah, that's bright. Do your fuel cells that colour. Although don't do it over black. Although that's not covering too bad. What paint is that?
Pro-acryl gold and yellow.
Oh, okay. Which we know covers well over black because we've heard this before.
Yeah, which is why I grabbed it.
Paint it like Santa. Paul, give it a rest, mate. Oh my god, Christmas is months away. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Carry on then, sir.
So, going back to the Kickstarter, briefly, because I think we're nearly there. I don't know. You're I guess if I go Plague, because I do like that Colossus, that is pretty cool. If I go Plague and then Asterians, if I go Lieutenant Pledge, that's probably not a bad shout. Probably not a bad shout. Because again, then if I upgrade into like if I do upgrade after buying the basic armies and get at least both of the behemoth models or super heavies
attacking me.
Why?
Paint it like Assassin's Creed and only paint 12% of it.
That's genius. That's absolute genius. So scrolling down, I think that's pretty much all of the meat and bones on the Kickstarter, guys. I don't know. I'm definitely going to be backing it. I have enough toy money. I have enough play money left over this month to actually treat myself. I'd like to only get the one faction, but like I say, if nobody else at the club is in, I've got to do the gaming advocate thing, haven't I, mate? It's like a legal obligation at this point. So, yeah, that's all we have for news. Yeah, cheese me. I'm the same as you, mate. I want the VMN. But then again, maybe I've just talked myself out of it. Yeah, and not only that, they've got a long way to go. They've got to basically double their money to get to that stretch goal.
Yes, but don't forget we're only 24 hours after release, you tit.
Yeah, I guess. I guess they probably will get there, won't they? I hope that they get there and then choose GCPS or something like that I'm not actually that bothered about. Because it'd be like, oh no, do I do the VM? No. So, should we get into our main topic, sir?
Yeah, I think we should go for a foray.
Okay, so for tonight's main topic, as I discussed earlier, if you were paying attention, and you should be paying attention all of the time, we were talking after club this week about the way that wargame scenarios, having complicated and super involved scenarios in a wargame, can be a double-edged sword. So, why don't you explain your thoughts about what happened with your Armada game, mate, to set the scene?
So, with the game that we played with Armada, it was a roll of the dice to see who was attacker, who was defender, so to speak.
Yeah.
I won the roll to be the defender, and I was playing dwarves. As we've already discussed, they're a little bit disgusting and a little bit resilient. Consequently, Alex was always going to have a little bit of an uphill struggle.
Because of the asymmetry of your win, because of the asymmetry in your win conditions, it sort of fed into it, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because just remind everybody because it was right at the beginning of stream, after you'd made that one dice roll for attacker defender, you had completely different scoring agendas, didn't you?
Yes. So I just had to survive and not have the map taken off me and get the information. I got 5 VP. If I didn't hold the map at the end of the game, Alex got 3 VP. And the information that I spent time going to the Centre Island for was worth the square root of fuck all. I would then have to be clawing my way back by sinking as much of Alex's shit as I could, because that's worth single victory points.
Night cheese, me.
So yeah, it was a bit asymmetrical with that. The other trap we sort of fell into was with the terrain. We left ourselves a couple of little narrow channels, but those channels were so narrow we couldn't really do a lot with them of getting stuff through. So,
and we will be coming. In fact, we had a good few ideas. We will probably be coming back to this topic and doing a full big topic on terrain in games and how it's the way the game designers advise you on your terrain layouts, because I think this was very much a factor with this, wasn't it, mate?
Yes, it was. It definitely struck into it.
So, so just to summarise for everybody, because your dwarf faction, effectively your dwarf faction is built around the principle that your shit is really resilient and difficult to get off the board.
Yep.
It's not particularly long ranged and it's not particularly quick, but it is really survivable. And immediately, Alex was on the back foot because the whole scenario played into your strength, didn't it? Yes.
It played into, I'm resilient as fuck, Alex has got to chip away at me. And to be really honest, I don't think bollocks. I don't think that there's anybody that can really outpace dwarves for damage resilience, i.e. the number of hull points on a boat and damage output.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of heavy weapons. So even if somebody's trying to close the gap for boarding actions, etc., they've already taken a shit ton of damage on the way in.
Yeah, your stuff's brutal at close range, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do any of your other models have, because not only do you have a shit ton of hull points built in, but do any of your models, apart from the Dreadnought, have that damage reduction? That
No, only the Dreadnought that
Okay,
has it.
so it's literally he's just got high numbers to chew through.
Yeah, and reduces his
And what-
damage on him as well.
And what faction was Alex again?
Alex is playing Northern Alliance.
Okay. So there was immediately an example of what seemed like a cool idea for a scenario, really asymmetric. Actually, it sort of created a situation where Alex was basically fucked from the moment that attacker-defender role was made.
Painted into a corner,
yeah,
so to speak.
From my point of view, to be fair, the Malifaux game that we played at Club this week wasn't too bad. Now, Malifaux has got an incredibly convoluted system of... all the scenarios are built dynamically. So you have like 5 main strategies, which are like your primary scoring opportunities. And then you generate 5 out of a maximum 12, I think it is, secondaries. And then pick 2 that favour your faction. So Malifaux, because they have a generate 5, pick 2, they sort of take into the account that your
not everyone's good at the main.
Yeah, not every faction is good at every job, okay? Which is great. But Malifaux does have a weakness, and we found this in the game before this one that we played, was the primary strategy is just generated and then that's it, you have to live with it. Now, in the game we played this week, in a way, Trevor was on the back foot, or Upworlder as he is in chat here, was on the back foot because one of the things about the main strategy we rolled for our game was I had the advantage that I could summon reinforcements, and at the end of the game, just me being able to summon extra models to do work and capture objectives was enough, because obviously Trevor's been taking casualties throughout the game, and then I can replace mine, but he can't. So in the end, he ends up outnumbered by 3 or 4 models. So
that's just rude.
My faction was absolutely on its A game with the main strategy of the game we played. Now, the last time we played, we literally rolled a strategy that was a hard nerf for my faction, because it basically said, if I decide to summon any model, I immediately give my opponent the point for the turn. So it completely switched me off from doing what my warband is designed to do. So again, we've got these incredibly sophisticated sort of like scenario rules that effectively create scenarios where it's like, well, this is a bit of a foregone conclusion. And obviously in the game where I was on the back foot, I got beaten soundly because I couldn't really score the main objective.
Again, Warcry is a prime example of this. You know, when you're drawing up your cards randomly before you start, that, no, this is a hard counter to this warband. I've got literally no chance of scoring this one.
Toros, I've just realised Paul is wearing an apron and not a cardigan over a black shirt. Not that I would be averse to wearing a cardigan, but no, you're correct. I am wearing an apron to keep these little shredded bits of plastic off my work clothes. Although keeping the sweater on was probably a bad idea, as I am now melting with an internal temperature of about 300 degrees. But you carry on, David.
Warcry is a prime example. Like, we've both played it, and it's, you have good scenarios where it's like, no, this is fair for like both of us, and then it's like, no, this really favours the movement focused faction or the defender, etc. And it's like, you know it, but I think
that is very true.
The thing with Warcry, your games are only about an hour. You don't feel too bad about it because you can shuffle up a couple more in an evening.
And because it has the campaign element, there's always a reason to play that game. You know,
Yeah.
if you're playing full fat Warcry where you've got your progression to your path of chaos or whatever it is, I don't know the terminology, but I mean, again, my real world example is I was playing Patrick in Scotland and we rolled a scenario. He had a model that had like double the movement of any of my others, and it was literally like, well, you've won this before we even put the models on the table, because it was grab the objective and run for the hills. There was no way if the model with the speed got the objective, I couldn't do shit about it. And again, because of the random deployments, it was just a sitter. You know, Patrick picks it up, fucks off, and it's like, okay, so we're going to Benny Hill round the map 3 turns. Yay! Sweet. Yeah, so that was my real world example of that. But like David said, totally different. Malifaux, I mean, how long was your Armada game? 2 hours?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and Malifaux is 2 to 3 hours. More like 3 if you're not red hot at the rules. So, yeah, nothing wrong with the cardigan. Yeah, so the only other way to go though is to keep scenarios really generic and really simple, isn't it?
Yes,
because like the one I thought of was OPR. Because like the free scenario that you get in the OPR base game is probably about as vanilla as you can get, isn't it? Place X objective tokens on the board. They don't matter until the last turn of the game, and then whoever holds them with the most models scores that point. So it's like, do what you like for 4 turns, then in the last turn of the game, mad rush for the objectives.
Yeah, but again, even in that situation, you've got 3 or 4 ways of cooking that cookie. Because you just try and alpha your opponent off the table so he's got less models to hold and score.
Yeah, but my counter to that is, in a war game, even if you're playing if you're playing a horde army with relatively weak models, but you get lots of them, you are balanced against an elite army, because if in terms of the damage output, you roll more dice but need more dice to get the job done. They roll less dice but they need lower numbers to get the job done. In those turns of just chewing away at each other, the elites should be ploughing through tons of shitty models that are dirt cheap, and you're probably ploughing through some of the elite models, and you can make smart choices, pick your fights well, and set yourself up for a good last turn. I mean, my gut instinct is that it's less fragile because of its simplicity. Am I wrong?
I'm just trying to think where there's a game that we've played where we've misinterpreted the scenario for the first few turns, and then it's suddenly twigged later on. Ooh. And the only thing I can think of is that Flames of War game the other week.
The one with the objectives.
You don't score them till turn 6. I've got to hold them, so I've got to sit on them a turn before you.
Yeah.
And you have nothing within 8.
Yes.
And it was wait. Right now we're going now, because if I don't go now, A, I'm going to get fucked. But B, I'm at a position where I can pinball down and actually score this without losing the game.
I mean, to be fair, that is a very good way to do it, where you have to plan scoring the objective in the previous turn. One of the strengths of Malifaux actually is that you will never score any points in Malifaux if you do not plan ahead to how you're going to keep scoring the points. You can't It's a game that really punishes you for flying by the seat of your pants all the time. Again, because it's alternating activations. So Toros.
Yeah, some other plays at a similar place to Kings of War. Slightly quicker, because you don't necessarily have that stalemate, right, we're going now.
Yeah, it's much more dynamic.
Upon the scenario. It's a lot more dynamic with its movement. Again, I think this was the other trap that Alex fell into in my game, because I didn't technically need to send the flagship ashore to beat up the enchanter to get the information.
Yeah.
So I sent my flagship towards the middle of the map. I could have sat with it like a dickhead, anchored in my deployment zone, behind all the rocks and everything, and made him fight his way through my fleet.
Right, because that was his scoring opportunity.
Yeah,
and in doing that, doing that did not hamper your own scoring opportunity.
No.
Which would have been a good way to balance the scenario, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Again, once that cancelled up, it would have hampered me getting to the centre island, because I've just sent shitty chap there, and he just keeps hunting it down.
That's a very good point. Toros makes a point. With scenarios, you should be able to win even if you lose. World War II, 1940, where you have, say, Germans versus Norway, the weak nation should still be able to win the scenario by holding out for excess. Exactly. I totally agree with you, Toros. Some of my favourite games are games where you can win even if you get a kicking. Frostgrave, bizarrely enough, if you play vanilla Frostgrave, and if you play it rules as written in the rulebook, the winner is the warband that takes the most treasure chests off the table. Even if the only 3 models that survive are the 3 that got off the table with the treasure chests, and you only left your opponent 2, you still won that game. And to be honest with you, that's another thing that's worth saying. If you've got a complex scenario, and after you strip all that complexity away, it's only who can give the other the biggest kicking that matters. What is the point? Do you think, mate?
It's not particularly fun, is it?
No. Yeah, I can't. I mean, that Flames of War one is a good example, but I think that is a separate issue, though. Us not understanding necessarily how the objectives worked. Bearing in mind, it was only our second full game of Flames.
Yes, this is true, but
do you think that scenario was? Do you think that scenario was difficult? Was more or less difficult for the attacker or the defender, or do you think it was quite well balanced in the way it was built?
It's a fairly well balanced scenario in where you've got to go to get your stuff, etc.
Yeah.
Like where the objectives are placed and everything else. Because again, your artillery could have ranged in just on the objectives.
Well, to be fair, that's what I tried to do, but it didn't work out that way, did it?
No. But I think I get what you're saying about not understanding it, but again, you can even if the scenario has really complicated rules, even if you're a seasoned veteran of the game, you can overlook the key scoring part. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do get exactly what you mean, and to be fair, it raises another potential negative on these increasingly convoluted scenarios. I mean, to be fair though, again, to be fair to Flames, that scenario, the timing was crucial, and it was required quite a degree of smarts to play it right. But basically, it was like there's 2 objectives on the board, and you have to hold them or keep somebody off them. It wasn't incredibly.
It wasn't overly complicated.
It wasn't overly convoluted, particularly in contrast to some of the things we've already discussed, like Malifaux and
Infinity.
Yeah, I mean, Infinity is another one where now Infinity is one that did come up actually in our discussions. So
yeah,
in Infinity has relatively complicated scoring structures on its scenarios, and obviously they release a mission pack every year called the ITS. So they're always constantly rebalancing scenarios for different factions and different play group for the meta, in effect, to try and keep it a good game. And Corvus Belli do a fantastic job. But one of the things I think that mitigates Infinity's difficulties and makes it actually work quite well is that Infinity is a game where there isn't a lot of really hard faction definition in the actual play styles, is there, mate? So, like,
no, you build your list to include a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
You build your list to have some close combat, some high armor, some hacking, some Overwatch pieces, etc., to set up to camp the objective.
So the complexity of Infinity scenarios doesn't punish people, for example, who play Hacker's Lamb. It punishes people who play any faction but then don't bring a well-rounded list with all of the tools that they need, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it does punish you, but in a different way. And then, to be fair, again, I often say it, this is one of the things, again, I think that makes Infinity one of the best war games out there, because its answers to a lot of the potential pitfalls and problems are incredibly elegant and sit very well within the system of the game without feeling forced. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is the argument then, simple versus complicated. Where? Because I suppose it's not universally true. I mean, you can have, because let's go for the most simple kill points, right? You just literally have to kill your opponent. If a war game is well designed, like I've already done with my argument about Swarm versus Elite or whatever, surely if your core game is well put together and your models are well balanced and costed, that should be a reasonably fair strategy or scenario. But it could be dull, couldn't it?
That's the thing is, I think it's sort of beaten into us as war gamers that the kill the shit out of your opponent scenarios tend to be the intro scenarios to the game.
Yeah.
Sort of the baby's first steps into the game itself.
Well, I think it's true. I mean, I don't think it's conditioned into us. I mean, it's simply a fact when you look at starter sets and rule books. Often the beginning or the recommended intro scenario is some sort of variation on that theme, isn't it?
Yes.
So go on, go further with that thought. What do you think about that? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
Well, again, because you sit there and it's like the intro scenario and baby's first steps into wargaming, when you come to play it later on in the game, you're like, well, why the fuck are we playing this? We could be playing like a proper meat and potato scenario with half a side of A4 and some rules, and instead we're just kicking the shit out of one another because we fancy kicking the shit out of one another.
Yeah.
We haven't got to think about it. It's not suddenly a thinking man's game, is it? It's just target prioritization. Yeah,
And there are some people who would push back and say, oh yeah, but there's a lot of subtlety in that in some games. And you're right, Infinity, the subtlety of, okay, I need to kill that model, and its armor is this, and its optimal range for attack is this, and its
And its
field of
BTS
view is
is that.
this. Do you know what I mean? Actually, just killing a model in Infinity can become the equivalent of solving a Rubik's Cube sometimes, which is why it's a fantastic game. But I agree with you that when a mission boils down to who can kill the most, even if there is some subtleties to it, it's boring. It doesn't excite me. Even in games like, I mean, one of the reasons when I first played Kings of War, I was so taken aback, even as somebody who loves Warhammer Fantasy Battles, when Mantic introduced the idea of objective tokens that you then place on your units because they've captured them, and then, you know, that unit can back off to a safe distance with its objective safe, and it just gives a whole new dynamic to just, well, will that charge succeed? Can a roll his line up? You know, it just becomes, it adds an extra level to it.
It makes you feel more like a miniature general.
I'm just going to have to go across to YouTube because the guys have been contributing some great thoughts and it's rolled away. So I just want to go and make sure I get.
Everything.
Ewok says, what's your opinion on every scenario being balanced across a campaign? Is that something that should only be in historical campaign, recreating real events, or should they work in other genres? That's a good question. Darren,
I will point the audience to Frostgrave the other week, where we played the new scenario, what scenario did we play? The Wraith scenario out of 2nd edition rulebook prior to going into this Red King campaign because Ricky wasn't there.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter was, I could do nothing to damage the Wraiths.
Because David had literally no way of generating magical attacks, he couldn't actually kill the monsters that were summoned by the scenario. On the other hand, mate, you could still play the game by just pushing them away because your wizard had the push spell, didn't he?
Yes.
So you could be creative and think your way out of a corner, couldn't you?
Yeah, and I did a couple of times, but again, it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Admittedly, the problem can't be solved by just killing it, which is you end up with a problem that you've got to keep solving over and over again as the bloody things keep marching towards you. But at least you did have a solution within the game framework, which is perhaps a note in Frostgrave's favour that even at that starter level, that scenario gave you some option.
Yeah, but this is also my argument too. It only gave me that option because I had that spell because I played the game before. And I know that push is quite a good multi...
So what you're saying is you could have easily chosen 9 spells or whatever it was and all of them would have been fucking useless.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. I mean, what about campaigns?
I think campaigns have a free pass to get away with it a little bit more. And I think the reason for that is because you're going into the next scenario, even if it favors, say me and you are playing a campaign.
Yeah.
Say it favours you for a couple of games.
Yeah.
Eventually, we will stumble across a scenario or 3 scenarios that massively, what's it called? Focus on my warbands.
Yeah, favour you. The sort of the pendulum would swing back.
Massively overspilt the red paint.
The other thing I would say about campaigns is, or the only thing I would say about campaigns is, I do think that there has to be some investment from both players. I totally get the fact that you can have war game scenarios, particularly in campaigns, where the objective, where winning is not an option, where beating your opponent in a straight up fight is not an option. But I do think there has to be some motivation for the player to do something to interact. So maybe it's like, well, if I can keep the more turns the longer it takes me to die, the better the next mission is for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, I will die, but if I die in 5 turns, not 3, that's better for me, because the next mission is different or better or whatever. So I do think that it's important that, because again, if you have a completely unwinnable scenario where the outcome can only be bad for you, what's the point in playing it? You may as well just have that as a, okay, well, we'll pass that because, yeah, you won, well done. There has to be some reason for wanting to play the game. Darren says he found the last 3 or 4 versions of 40k scoring less interesting because it's all about holding objectives rather than mad stuff.
What is interesting?
Yep.
Gaslands and the audience vote system.
Right.
Because that allows you to interact with and fuck up your opponent that's winning.
Although
like setting them to 5 hazards.
Yeah, but that's a core game mechanic. But the actual scenario condition is basically get first over the line. It's ridiculously simple, isn't it? And it doesn't hurt that game at all.
No. And this is what I mean. And looking at it from an outsider, like Gaslands is quite basic in its scenarios. Yes, there's a bit of a campaign and everything else. But like the death race is just first past the post wins. The demolition derby, you've got to just score a certain amount of points for killing your opponents, etc. And again, some factions are better than that than others. If you play it as a string of one-shots, it's like, okay, tonight's not my night, but another night will be. Yeah. If you play it as a campaign scenario or a campaign series of games, it's like, okay, well, we'll play Death Race tomorrow night, and I'm Miyazaki, so I'll do shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Gaslands and building cards for one-shots is a completely different scenario to campaign Gaslands. Like Miyazaki, for Death Race, you basically only take 1 card, you pimp it to the fucking high heavens so that you can always get your audience vote machine off. And you put most of your weapons on the rear facing.
Yeah.
Because you're always out in front. That does not help you when you get into the middle of an arena of death.
No, exactly. You need a different build and a different strategy, don't you? Darren's comment about 40k, I sort of agree, Darren. I'll be brutally honest, when I first played 9th edition, which was the first edition that went with the super complicated primary, secondary scoring, and it was really convoluted, it was one of the things I enjoyed most about 40k, but then again, I enjoy that element of Infinity and Malifaux, the complicated missions. My issue with 40k was, there's already too much for me to be fucking getting my head around. I didn't need it in that game.
On top.
Yeah. While I wasn't opposed to it per se, I had other issues with the game system where I felt that it wasn't particularly balanced because, again, the problem with 40k, it's still a fucking very deadly game, and to be honest, if you don't want to get shot off the fucking table, you can't really afford to be focusing on the objectives without just focusing on killing shit. Everything is just so bloody lethal, which is why I prefer games like Firefight, where you just chuck a few dice and a few models die, but you don't get this like, pick that unit up, pick that unit up, pick that unit up. It's like, oh, fuck off.
You don't get a domino across the table kind of thing.
Ewok says, at Toros, I'm kind of the opposite, maybe more abstract. I enjoy playing an abstract scenario, but try different army lists against the same scenario. Abstract's definitely got its place, Ewok. I like... Sometimes where a war game, again, this is why I love Infinity, where a war game becomes more of a complicated logic puzzle. Yeah, where it becomes a logic puzzle rather than a force of arms. I really enjoy those sort of games. Again, I like the new version of Kill Team with its all complicated action point economy and that sort of thing. I like that sort of stuff as well. Darren says a good book is the Book of Sci-Fi Skirmish Scenarios by John Lambshead. Good shout, Darren. Novel-sized books with 36 independent scenarios.
I tell you one that we played just the demo of at Herald.
Oh,
that Cyberpunk one.
Yeah.
The scenarios were relatively simple, relatively easy, but it was the AI and the fact it was co-op and working as a team that is like, fucking hell, hang on a minute, what are we doing now? Because we've just had like 4 guys spawn and we're fucked.
Yeah, but again, that's the co-op element of that. It just changes a game completely, doesn't it? The dynamic just becomes completely different. And maybe that's a good example of where incredibly complicated scenarios work really well in like in those sort of cooperative games or semi-cooperative games. Ewok says first 2 bolt action games were kill everything. Third game was control quarters of the table, and that's the game that got him hooked. Yeah. I don't know if Firefight and Dead Zone do have narrative scenarios. Firefight has something like 13 scenarios in the base rulebook. And they are of differing levels of complexity, but I don't think any are labelled particularly narrative, but I could be wrong on that. We tend to use Ricky's copy of the rulebook. Parsecs meets Gaslands style game. Yeah, again, I liked the idea of it, but it was just too much there was too much to get my head around, Darren, with that. So we've got 15 minutes left, mate. So we've discussed a lot of things around this. Here's the last one. Here's the parting shot. Does it matter if a scenario is a little bit wonky? Does it matter? Shouldn't the objective just to be enjoy playing the game? And if it does matter, is the game at fault, basically? Because it's not a pleasant process to go through the motions.
I think it depends, and we've already touched on it earlier with Warcry.
Yeah. Go on.
Warcry, you're invested in, because it's campaign mode, or even if it's a one-shot. You know that, okay, I'm going to get my ass handed to me this game.
Yeah.
But then you have the counterpoint of how do you play around the scenario and fuck up with your opponent? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that when you go into the next game, you've already scouted out for an hour on the last scenario what's good at killing what's good at fucking around. It's like a play test session for you because you know you're not going to win it.
Because you know your opponent's models next time, you can what do you refine your knowledge, I guess. Up your skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Again, you can refine your rules knowledge, etc. Like again, if an Armada game is not for you, you can try to maneuver to cross the T's more, etc., and see how that looks from a gameplay point of view. And again, plotting your opponent's courses based on the interactions he's got to do. Or the fact that he's trying to escape you and run around the back of an island. How quick can you open up your sails or engines?
Yeah.
Head him off at the pass.
Yeah. So
and cross the T in front of him.
So you're gaining play knowledge out of a loss.
Yeah.
Meta knowledge, if you like.
Yeah. If the game...
Firefight does have battle
90 minutes.
Missions. Okay, okay, thanks.
I think if the game's 90 minutes or less, it's fine. If it's over 90 minutes, it starts to leave a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth, particularly if it's a game... Again, we're magpies. We go through a lot of different games regularly.
Yeah.
If it's the first or second time of the year that you've rolled up a bad scenario each time, and they're 2 of your 3 play sessions this year,
yeah,
you might not even play your 3rd play session because it's left a taint in your mouth.
Yeah.
Versus other games. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. I was thinking about one of the examples of this for us was Carnivale, wasn't it? One of the negatives for Carnivale for David and I when we first started playing it properly was the secondary objective deck is so fucking random. You can draw 3 or 5, 3 to 5 cards where you look at it and you go, well, I just can't do that. Do you know what I mean? Or that's ridiculously hard. And your opponent could be like, and your opponent's like, well, that's a sitter, 1 point for me, and that's a sitter, 1 point for me, and you're like, oh, fucking hell.
But then Carnivale does have the counter to it that certain scenarios only allow you to score secondaries if you've interacted and dealt with the main first.
That is true. They have put that in. That is true. Yeah. You know you're going to lose, but how Pyrrhic can you make it? Yeah, exactly. I think that's a fair comment. I think it's here's I'm going to set my stall out. Generally, I think making wargame scenarios a little bit on the complicated side is generally a good thing because they give you a more interesting, varied, and involved gaming experience. But, like David says, where the play length of your game is on the upper end of that spectrum, I think as a game designer, you've got to be careful you don't create faction traps where it's like, oh yeah, this mission's great unless you're this faction, in which case it's shit.
Because again, we haven't even really touched on that yet so far tonight, of certain scenarios really favour one faction. We mentioned it briefly with the movement in Warcry.
Well, your dwarves having survivability in a game where they've got to be killed.
Yeah.
And my basically 10 Thunders where this scenario is great, just don't summon anything. It's fucking great. So we have sort of touched upon some examples, but have you got more?
Again, I'm just thinking from an Armada standpoint, like leaning into that faction leaning. So the dwarves are very heavily armoured. The dwarves have heavy cannons for days. The dwarves have engines so that they are manoeuvrable.
Yeah, they can resist wind effects, can't they, basically?
Resist wind effects and also make a turn at any point before they start moving to avoid colliding or whatever. So they have got all that manoeuvrability, etc. on their side. Their downside is they are slow.
Yeah.
The fastest dwarf boat is 5 inches. They're all about 4 or 5 inch movements.
Yeah.
But this is what I was saying to Alex. Because we don't play with the full win rules in Armada because they're a bit broken, or at least we feel that they're a bit broken, they don't really seem to work well. I spend most of the game running round at battle speed or flat out and getting 2 or 3 movement steps. So I'm moving 8 to 12 inches per boat per time.
Yeah.
Also, because I'm running flat out, I'm -1 to hit. So even if you can touch me, you're not hitting me as much.
Yeah.
You're hitting me 10% less because I'm going like the clappers all the time because that's the only way that I can make my faction work for a specific scenario.
Yeah, yeah.
We suffered from it when it was Salamanders versus the Dwarves with picking up the Flotsam and Jetsam because you did that really well to begin with until I bogged down one of your ships that had all the treasure on it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
like
then
say,
that swung the thing back.
Yeah, my speed was an initial advantage, but because of the way the scenario worked, I didn't lock those wins in because you just said, okay, that's fine. You scoop all that up and then I'll sink those ships and take it off you. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
Shit. So yeah, I need to be survivable as well. Moonstone is pretty simple. Collect the moonstones, but some scenarios change it a little. I especially like the go home you're drunk scenario where one side is attempting to rob a drunk man. Yeah, that sounds really cool. Really cool. Mordheim is one of those classic games I remember. The scenario structure in Mordheim was great, with some really weird setups, like you'd have a street fight or an ambush, or and they had there's one Mordheim scenario, I think, where you start and your leaders are essentially having an argument in the middle of the table, and everybody else is standing around just watching them. No, it's Necromunda, wasn't it? It's like you're having an argument in the middle of the table, and your leaders are completely exposed, and everybody else is just standing around watching this argument. I think the other thing is as well. I do think there is an element of a game that's fun. How many games of Frostgrave have we played, and we never even asked the question who won?
True, because we've been playing it and just enjoying it.
It's just like we get to the end of the scenario, whatever that is, and we're just like, oh, right, now, so who's dead? And no, at no point does anybody go, who got the most treasures? Did anybody actually win? Was it a tie? It's like, because the actual process is so much fucking fun, you actually don't care. I think that is definitely something that a lot of games should aspire for. Don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah, sort of Ewok. Yeah, essentially, you had to roll randomly. I think it was in Necromunda to see when the argument went live or kicked off, and nobody could shoot or do anything until it kicked off. It was a really weird scenario. You could basically just move for position but couldn't attack anything. It was a very clever scenario. It was very odd.
It just so happens that ours went nuclear, I think, in turn 1.
Yeah, and again, that's characteristic of games like Mordheim, Necromunda, and to be honest with you, Frostgrave as well. They're characterized by scenarios that are incredibly random. We touched on it with, I think it was mentioned with like 5 Leagues and stuff like that. Again, those scenarios, and I think this is where you can say a game's definitely leaning into its narrative elements, where any fucking random shit can happen at any time. You know a game is leaning into its narrative elements, and you just have to be up for the ride of that unpredictability and chaos. Oh, I see that you're talking about the Drunk Man one. Yeah. And then Drunk Fritz has a special version of his card. That's quite cool. Ulterior Motives is a very good supplement for Frostgrave. And again, so I mean, that's another thing. That's another thing that can create incredibly complex scenarios potentially. A Malifaux-esque random system for generating scenarios, where there isn't you literally just generate deployment with a dice roll. Generate the main objective with a dice roll, generate secondary objectives, and you end up with this potentially 9,999 different permutations. Can be good.
But again, we've said Warcry is a bad example.
Yeah, I was just going to say it can be good. It can be chaotic and catastrophic. A la Warcry, where it's like, this is the one I can't win. Should we get this over with as quickly as possible? Yeah. Do you know, it's been an interesting discussion. Where do you sit on complex versus easy, mate? What is your personal taste?
How do you mean?
Well, like I've said, to restate my case, I think I would rather play a slightly more involved scenario, even if it's not that balanced. But a game needs to be careful, because like you said, if it's a 3-hour slog, and I felt that I never had a fucking chance by the time I get to the last turn, I'm probably shelving that fucking game or not coming back without a strong hard think. So yeah, I favour I'm complex scenarios, yes, but with caveats. Where are you versus complex versus easy?
I'm similar to yourself. I prefer I prefer a thinking man scenario of deciding what to do, what's the best course of action to take, kind of thing.
Yep.
I think you can definitely fall into it's a trap if it's asymmetric, particularly with the play length. It's like, oh, this seems like a really cool idea in a game. Me and Alex looked through the book and we went, oh, this seems really cool because it's like an attacker-defender scenario. It's something neither of us have really experimented with. But to be fair, if we'd have put our thinking hats on, we wouldn't have had Alex roll for it, let's be brutally honest.
You'd have actually allocated, well, hang on a minute.
You'd allocated.
Yeah. That's a good shout, actually, though, mate, where experience can help you to sort of like navigate this sort of thing. And maybe as well, here's a comment for everybody to think on. Sometimes just because a game says something should be randomly determined, that's not always the best way to determine it. Particularly if you're experienced gamers, maybe having a conversation with your opponent and talking it through rather than rolling a dice might be the best way forward.
Like again, 7th edition Necrons.
Yeah.
You always used to bring, 250 points less than the agreed points?
Yeah, something like that. I used to vary it with my opponent. I sometimes used to go as much as 500 points light if I knew I was going to absolutely destroy them. Because it just gave me more fun of a game. I didn't want to table them turn 2 because it just feels shit. So I'll just say, well, I'll bring less points, and it gives us a real game.
Now, have you seen there's a Deep Rock Galactic Solo roguelite on Steam? No, I hadn't, Ewok.
He does now. No. So no doubt I'll be checking it out. That's a good point. Darren says, if the scenario is too complicated, split it out into smaller linked scenarios. That's a good thought, Darren.
Yeah.
I like Ewok's idea as well. You could have recurring characters giving side objectives. Thing is with that turns a campaign game like Frostgrave into an almost RPG experience, doesn't it? With
this is what I'm quite liking the look of with 5 parsecs.
Oh, right, okay, so this is something that's built into it, is it?
Your villains and bits and pieces that come in and can interact with your characters and people giving you side art quests and everything else. Something I'm quite liking the look of with 5 parsecs.
I know that this topic's...
Right, should we just...
hang on a minute. I know this topic's run on a bit, but I've just had another thought, and I just want to put it out there before it gets out of my head. Another thing I've just thought of is one of the drawbacks of very simple scenarios is that where that's all a game has to offer, don't you think that there's a risk that you list build in a particular way and never vary the theme? I mean, I'm thinking of Gaslands. What if Death Race was the only mode for Gaslands? Every list you build in Gaslands would be the same fucking thing. Agility bonus, any kind of dice manipulation for skid dice.
It would be Idris or Miyazaki.
Exactly. And even if you picked one of the other factions, it would be a performance car with the enhancements that allow you to get maneuverability and speed. And you'd leave.
No, because that's faction dependent. It's not just based on the fact that it's a performance car.
I guess then what we're saying is if that is the only play mode, you end up with some factions who just aren't even in the game.
Yeah, and this was the other thing I was going to say to you. Like Gaslands, how you build your table impacts.
But that's for the terrain video.
You rocked up to a Gaslands Death Race with Idris and all of the nitro boosters, and you fucked up because there wasn't basically anywhere on the table that we could use along trade for yourself.
Yeah.
Or
by the same token, if you build a NASCAR circuit, then it's like...
Should we just quickly come down to my camera?
Let's do it.
So we can see what we're doing before we fuck off, because we're already 5 minutes overrunning.
Yeah, let's do it. You're on. Oh, that night. I like it. Is that a metallic or is that just a red brown?
just burnt red from Vallejo.
Okay, cool. Oh, I love that colour. You see, that's the way to go with all these sci-fi things. Bright, vibrant, crazy colours. Oh, yes, mate. Yep. Are those all 3D prints?
Yeah.
They look awesome. Which range are they from? Or are they just shit you've picked up over the...
The shit I've picked up over time is the honest answer.
Do you know what? This is
and then the final one is the bright fucking yellow.
That'll weather down nicely. It's a little bit intense at the minute, but I think it'll go there. It'll get there. Yeah, I tell you what, it's a good idea doing this terrain stuff.
Well, it means we're getting done on projects and things that we would have just parked for ages.
Correct. And I don't need to go to desk cam. That's what we've done. That's what we've managed to get cleaned. Done 8, and then started a 9th.
Oh, fucking Jesus.
But to be fair, I was doing a lot of clicking. I did hardly anything while we were talking about Warpaths, so I've only basically been working for half the stream. Otherwise, I'd have got 16 done.
I hate factions in Gaslands, but it's just my personal preference. I'd rather build my own gang of drivers with various skill. I mean, again, that would be cool if you could build like a team of sponsored drivers, so you could have a Miyazaki guy and a Rutherford guy and that, to bring those faction-specific ones rather than across the team, across your team of drivers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I can see why Ewok says that. I think though that by having team abilities rather than individual car abilities, it gave the designer more space, because some of the stuff just wouldn't work if it was only on a single car. Would it, mate? Some of the faction stuff's is really weird in Gaslands. Apparently Ewok's done insanely colourful crates on a project. Something else.
Those yellow ones look like they're straight from a new series of... Yeah.
Well, he's found 2 more at home, Spam, so you can clean them up for me. That'll save me 10 minutes. Those yellow barrels look like they're straight from the new series of Red Dwarf.
Basically, what Spam has volunteered for there unknowingly is she is now my 3D print cleaning bitch.
Boom, son! That's it.
Well volunteered, darling.
Well done. Regrets, we have a few. Right, okay, let's call it a night, guys. We've already overrun. Thank you very much again to everybody who's watching us late on YouTube, and for all the guys in the chat. This is their show, not ours. We're just idiots. If you can only find time to do a single thing tonight, please click the like button. Obviously, if you can do any of the other stuff that's listed here below our little logo, then that's absolutely brilliant. But a like is all we ask for, and hopefully it's not too much to ask you for. Right, I think with that we better get off, because we got stuff to clean up. I want to get all this plastic shavings off me.
Put down the getting off and edging jokes. Everyone, put them down, walk away from them, and we'll be back next week, same time, same place, on a Thursday, chatting shit.
But will David be black rimming next week?